Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is the story I'm telling myself. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast. We are so happy to have you with us again because today we are asking ourselves a very important question. And that question is, are you creating your own lack of well-being in your life? And this is something that we all should be contemplating. We should be pausing to contemplate every once in a while. And we have the perfect person to really help us understand this. Monique Helstrom is with us. Monique, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rita. I am so excited about today.
I am as well. And I'm very excited to really give listeners some deep ways to think about this conversation. But before we get there, I want to say to my friends who are with us live today, if you're joining us on the Tuesday Live, thank you. We do this show with you and for you. We treasure having you with us in the comments. So please jump in now. Make sure you come introduce yourselves and welcome our guest, Monique. And while they're in the comments, Monique, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Sure. I am Monique Helstrom. I am a lifelong and career executive assistant, stemming from a very young age of 8 to 10 or something like that. Answering my dad's phones. He was a contractor, and I used to answer the phones and make appointments and all of those sorts of things. So I really grew up in a logistical and operational environment. And now I've spent my career as an executive assistant, most recently for the famous Simon Sinek. I spent my last decade supporting him as chief of Simon.
That is amazing because I don't know anybody who is not a Simon Sinek fan, and I continue to follow his work and learn from him regularly, as do so many. MoniqueHelstrom.com. She couldn't have made it easier for you, friends. This is the best way for you to connect with Monique. And after you hear this story, you're going to want to do that. So go over to her website, MoniqueHelstrom.com. You'll find all of her social links, everything else that you want to know about her there. Devin, I think am saying your name correctly. Devin, we are so glad to have you with us live and nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. So at age 36, Monique, you had a significant life-altering wake-up call. Walk our listeners into this moment. Tell us a little bit about what was going on in your life. More importantly, what was the story you were living, and how did that become this transformational moment?
Great. Thank you. So the story actually takes place in August of 2017. But leading up to that, my world was always, again, logistical and operational. I come from a military father who very much raised us in the way of the military, the black and white type of thinking. And for no good, no bad, my childhood was mostly, I received praise for what I did, not how hard I tried. It was always the grade that I got that got me the praise, or the soccer game that I won, or the karate tournament that I won. It was never really.
All right, go ahead over there in the comments. Raise your hands if you're relating to what Monique is saying already, because I'm here raising my hand. Yeah, and I didn't have a military father, but I understand this.
It was reward based, and I was consistently told you will get rewarded for how hard you work. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing to say to your kids, but I think I took it to a completely different point where I thought, well, if my actions are going to consistently be rewarded, then I better be perfect in what I'm doing so that I can continue to be rewarded. This is, as we know, not only brain science and biological, but just we as humans, we want to walk towards the things that we're good at. So I spent a lot of my time, let's just say it, trying to be perfect. I just, mistakes I hid. I tried to pretend that I didn't make mistakes. And when I did, I went into a shame spiral of, why did I do that? And like the negative self-talk that came out of my head was absolutely incredible. And I really felt like everything in my world was dependent on what I did, not who I was as a human.
All right, wait. We got to pause. This is a clip it moment for sure. What you just said, everything was about what I did,
Not who I
not who I was.
Yeah.
Whew. I mean, that lands heavy, but I can relate to that. I'm Sharon. Welcome. I am so glad that you are with us. Good friend of the show and former guest Sharon Summerfield with us. And she says, many of us were raised this way. Yes, Sharon and I have a little more decade time on walking the earth than you have in your life, Monique. But yes, I mean, very much. Sharon and I, we were entering the workforce, and Sharon is a former executive assistant, keeping the lights running and the place happening. So she totally gets what you were doing in your career. But we were told as a woman, there is no quarter for any mistakes. This is a man's world. And if you're going to compete, you can show no weakness.
Yep. Puff up them shoulders, put those peacock feathers up.
Oh, girl, we even had the shoulder pads back in the day. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely love shoulder pads. I'm waiting for those to come back. They just made me look so skinny. I don't know. But yeah, what I was saying, I said it then and I'll say it now. I was very much a human doing, not a human being. And
human doing, not a human being. That's another great phrase. And, the hustle culture, what's so interesting about this, Monique, is the generation coming after us, the younger millennials, and especially that hustle culture, that idea that you should be working your 9 to 5, and then you should be having a side hustle so that you can, have your own independence and all of these other things. Like it's this idea of you are a human doer and your value is proven in your productivity. It was bad when I was coming up. It was bad a decade later behind me with you. But when I look at some of these young people, I just go, oh my goodness, when do they get to be?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they finally so many of them hit their breaking point, right? And now we have the antithetical to the hustle culture, which I'm here for. Snaps to that. I mean, I am 100% here for that. And it's part of the reason that we're having this conversation is it is so easy in a capitalist driven, consumer driven society to fall into this story that we tell ourselves that our worthiness comes from our productivity.
100%. 100%. And this is reinforced a lot by the world. I mean, I'm a Gen X and I grew up in the 80s and 90s when a lot of the celebrities and it was all talking about hustle culture. Even today, I read a study from Harvard Business Review showing that this crazy schedule nonsense has picked up since the 1960s, and this humble brag about working harder, must work harder, can't take a vacation. Oh my, all of that advertising was out. And, hearing quotes from Beyonce saying, I don't sleep, hearing quotes from Elon Musk talking about how he doesn't sleep. There was so much out there about you can make it. You just have to sacrifice you as a human being in order to do it. So
look, if you can relate to this conversation, you need to share this episode with 3 friends, because I'm telling you, if people aren't tuned into this, they are kidding themselves, because this is real. And this is an important thing, because it is not just a story that we make up and tell ourselves. What Monique is saying is this is a story that is thrust upon us through social values and norms.
Through celebrities, through advertising. Advertising when I was a child was never, how am I going to get all my work done? It was Calgon, take me away, and all of those sorts of things. And I remember everyone praising Jack Ma from Alibaba with his 996. They work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, and all of that. And it was just this momentum, especially as a woman. we're not given the same privileges. Let's just be honest. So we have to work twice as hard. We have to think about what we say twice as much as any man does. And we have to prove our worth twice as much as any other person does as well. So that
and we carry the majority of the labor and emotional labor of our family situation outside of work.
Yeah.
So on top of all of that hustle in work itself and human doing, then we go into our family unit and we have more human doing.
We have more human doing.
Our love language is forced to be acts.
Yep. And then we go into the workforce and I pick a job where I'm an executive assistant where A, making mistakes is probably not something you want to do all the time, but B, you're sort of judged not only on what you do, but what on another human does that you do not control. Like, I didn't have the Sega joystick to control Simon. He had to do whatever he had to do, but I was still judged on his actions, his behaviors, as well as my actions and my behaviors, as well as the external world's actions and behaviors. When I had to give him bad news,
he was also judged on you. You were a representative of him. And so you're carrying the burden of, I'm representing this famous, well-known, well-established, celebrity, business celebrity, right? And if I make him look bad, that's a big thing. Hey, Merle, I'm glad to see that you made it to join us today. I just want to share real quick here what Sharon said. She said, love the shoulder pad comment, and that many of us human do instead of human be. And I think it's so important the way that you name this to us, Monique. So you were caught in this, I got to be a perfectionist. I'm not just representing me, I'm representing somebody else. We have all these social norms that are putting pressure on us. Yeah. How long, so you, from what age to age 36, was this your operating mode?
Oh, birth. I operated at fast forward from the day that I could perform. I will never live it down, but my parents always tell me my first steps, I ran. I didn't step, I didn't walk. I ran across the room. That's just who I am. And that,
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Formulated me throughout my entire life, and so
and more importantly to that is because of that, always that push. The other thing that you said, I want to make sure that we highlight here is shame. The way that the psychology of this thinking starts to form our shame narrative, because that is psychologically, that is one of the strongest things that impact us. And it does form at a very young age. And I will tell this on myself. I was putting together a proposal for strategic planning offsite for a potential client. And I was putting the final touches on it yesterday. And so I ran it through my AI and said, scrub through this and find any errors that I've made or any realignments that you can see to make sure that this is perfectly polished. And it gave me several things. And then I took that revision and ran it through Grammarly and said, okay, one final check, Grammarly, like make sure this is like crystal clear. But when things were found, like an extra space or a missing space between two words, or, a missing comma or something like that, the shame that's like, I almost hit the send button and didn't do this check. And the shame, the deep shame that I felt about that. Like, I really get this
consequence about, they're going to read this proposal. They're going to see an extra space and they're going to think I'm an idiot.
Yes. Yes.
That's the other part of it. It's not just our internal shame that we're doing. We're anticipating and putting words and ideas in other people's mouths. And we're saying, well, they're going to think this of me if I made a mistake. If someone
and that's not just made up hoo-ha. That is, I got direct feedback from somebody once before about a blog post that I made that had a grammatical error in it. And the person said, why would I ever hire and work with you if you can't even, and I was like,
Yep.
Ooh, wow. But you do get this kind of feedback.
Yeah.
You get, I mean, for somebody like me who owns a business, every proposal is basically a job application.
Yeah.
And rule number one of your job application is don't have anything screwed up in your resume and your cover letter, whatever, right? It needs to be polished and perfect, because any error there is going to put you in the elimination pile.
Yeah. Well, as a recruiter, I will tell you that does not happen anymore. So just a side note, I see more spelling errors and punctuation errors and grammar errors in people's resumes than I think I ever should. So by the way, side note, if you're job seeking, run the situation through AI and Grammarly like 15 times. Anyway, just going back to what you were saying, as an executive assistant as well, we are in this weird space, and it's determined by your executive, but we get blamed. We certainly actually get blamed for things that are not our fault. Someone didn't get back to us in time. We take the fall. I schedule 100 perfect calls for someone, and that one call that goes awry, that's showing up in my 30, 60, 90-day review. So we do get called out for our mistakes consistently. If it's not from our executive, it's from somebody else saying, could you do this to your executive? You sent out that email that had the misspelling and you're representing Simon, and how could you? And blah, blah, blah. So I learned very early on, I had to hide my mistakes from people. I had to make sure that everyone thought that I was perfect, because I had to be in order to do my job well. And any negative comment about that was just dismissed. Hey, go take a vacation. Psh. Hey, do you really need to work that hard? Psh. All of that. We tell ourselves the story, and it just doesn't stop. So anyway,
we tell ourselves a story, the shame builds, and the shame is kind of the emotional. Hey, Leanna, great to see you back with us. The shame becomes the heavy backpack that you don't release. It just keep adding one stone after one stone, right? I mean, it never lets go. The stones just build. So now you have this pattern that's happening. You're carrying your heavy backpacks around, and what happened?
So it's August of 2017. I had just returned home from another long trip with Simon. I was on the road with him 200 to 220 days a year. So we were constantly going city to city, airplane to airplane. I used to have 4 packed suitcases in my house, throw one in, bring the other one out, and go. So as what I usually did whenever I had a few days at home, you book all your appointments, because you never know when you're going to get back again. I had a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, blah, 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 blah. I'm at the doctor's appointment. I saunter in 10 minutes early because I'm an assistant, and that's what we do. Scribbled down the name in my arrival sheet. I took my seat, and of course, the first thing I do is I pull out my iPhone. I was addicted to the phone. That's where my work went through. That's how people knew that I was on. That's how people knew that I was doing things. If they didn't get an email, maybe they thought I wasn't working hard enough. Oh my goodness. So I'm sitting in there, and I hadn't really been feeling well, and I must say I probably wasn't feeling well for about 3 months. I'll be honest with you, but I was like, meh, I have my primary doctor coming up. Meh, it's fine. I'll work through it. It's fine. Drink some water. I think it'll be great. So I'm just getting warmed up with my thumbs, and they call me into the office, and I get my blood taken. And I very much remember looking at my iPhone while I had my arm out while they're taking blood, and I'm typing with my thumb while they're doing that. And I just remember being like, can you hurry up? I need both of my hands to type on the phone. So the barrage of tests concludes, and I begrudgingly put my all-powerful device down to listen to what the doctor says. And I thought she was just going to say the same old crapola: eat well, sleep well, do all the stuff. Are you doing yoga? I'm like, whatever. But instead she tells me I'm having a dangerous elevated heartbeat, that there's mucus buildup in my lungs, that my temperature was 103, and my EKG was off the charts. And she said to me, I don't have time to call you an ambulance. I'm putting you in a cab, and I'm sending you downtown to Penn Hospital in Philadelphia immediately. You're on the verge of a heart attack. And I'm like, what? And she's like shuffling me out of the office, and I'm like looking around, making sure I got my phone in my bag, God forbid. I'm in the cab on the way to the hospital, and I'm looking at my schedule going, geez, this is really going to interrupt my day. This is really going to take some time out of my day. I need to make sure people know what's going on.
I am laughing because this would be my response too, Monica. I mean, it's sad, but maybe not to where I've gotten in my life today, but there was a time in my life where, yes, absolutely, that would have been my response as well. And the story that you're telling yourself is this is inconvenient.
This is inconvenient. My health is very inconvenient.
My health is very inconvenient.
Oh, it's really inconveniencing me. This whole emergency room thing is really taking time out of my day. So I get into the emergency room, I get in the bed, a nurse comes in like every 10 minutes to tell me what's going on, something new. And I'm only really half paying attention because I remember the internet being slow. And I remember being frustrated that the internet was slow while I was sitting in the emergency room on my phone. My first my first text was to Simon. My second text was to my CEO. My third was to my assistant. It was like 27 texts in where I was like, oh, maybe my mom should know about this. Maybe I should text my family, let them know that I'm here too. It was all Simon. I even called him, I think, from the emergency room. And he's like, what are you doing? Hang up the phone. What? Like he was mad almost at me for doing this, but I couldn't. I was doing all the things. Anyway, finally a doctor walks in and she says, we have to take you to the MRI machine. And she actually took my phone out of my hand and puts it on the table. And she says, you have a severe respiratory infection and you have pneumonia. We have to take you for an MRI right now. And you're on the verge of a heart attack. So, put your things away and no, you can't take your phone with you. And I was like, but I genuinely said to her, but what if someone takes my phone? She's like, we're in the emergency room. I was like, people take my phone. I'm in the emergency room. I don't care. What if somebody calls and I don't answer it? As I'm in my robe with my butt hanging out of the back, my tuchus is hanging out and I'm like worried about the phone, not my tuchus hanging out the back. And so
not worried about the fact that you have a pneumonia diagnosis or the fact.
Not even thinking about it. Not even thinking about it. I get into the MRI. They're like shooting me up with that blue dye that stings like a son of a gun. And that's when I was like in my body for the first time going, what is happening? And I will never forget this doctor. She calmly sat me down and she looked me in the eyes and she said, no one will ever be remembered for how many emails they sent. And I sat there and I looked at her. And I'm looking, she pointed to my hand and my hand was in the shape of a phone. I was holding a imaginary phone. And she said this and pointed to the words MRI machine on the wall. This isn't worth this. What you're doing isn't worth this. And so that was my moment. I sat in that MRI room and got my MRI and I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because she was right. I didn't know who I was.
Well, you said something really important, Monique, to me. You said that was the first time I was in my body. And I don't know if you like Glennon Doyle's work or if you listen to the We Can Do Hard Things podcast that she does with her wife and sister. But she has talked about this in her own healing journey that she has been on over the last couple of years about, and it's gotten in her way of speaking. Like she's not really done a lot of speaking or public stuff because she realized that she was never in her body when she did that. And the challenge that her therapist gave her, it was to figure out how to get back into her body. And I think for many type A people, many high achievers, overachievers, perfectionist people, this is what we learn at a very young age, is that you can't be in your body. You can't be in your feels. You can't
rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it and walk away.
That you've got to have this performative mask that extricates yourself from, emotions are messy. Emotions get in the way. They slow you down, all of those things.
Yep.
And so if you're not in your body, you're not going to experience.
Yeah. I don't need enough sleep. I can keep going. I can just throw this cheeseburger down my throat and keep going on my day. No biggie. I can. And our body sort of lets us do it. Our bodies are amazing pieces of machinery, and they can keep up with us for a period of time until you're 36 and you're sitting in an emergency room, like thinking of all your life decisions and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why am I letting this thing run my life? So yeah, I had heard 1,000 stories about burnout before, but I never thought it would happen to me. I didn't pay attention to the signs. I didn't pay attention to my body. I didn't pay attention to what other people were saying. I just needed to do what I needed to do in order to be seen how I wanted to be seen.
I know what thought I would have had. I just wonder if this happened to you sitting in the emergency room when you start sending out all of those messages to say, hey, slight problem here. Right. Is that what I would have been thinking in the back of my head is, oh, now I'm showing the ultimate vulnerability because now my body physically is giving out on me. And now they're going to think I can never be reliable again. That's the story I would have had in my head.
100 times. 100 times. And all I think I had that day was meetings with my internal team. It wasn't even meetings externally. And I hesitated on those emails. I didn't want people to think I was weak.
Yes. Yes. Hey, Lisa, welcome. And you know, so there is this story, right, of not sharing our vulnerability, which is why Brene Brown has been so extremely successful in her work, is changing that narrative that we have, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about fear of any vulnerability showing and how that is going to be measured. So you're sitting in the MRI room. The technician, the doctor, whomever you're engaging with, they've kind of gotten through. They've kind of helped you make this connection that your work addiction, your productivity addiction has led you to this health crisis moment. And it hit you. It hit you firmly. It was a huge emotional release for you. Start to talk to us about how your internal narrative started to shift. Absolutely. From that moment moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to take a few days to really get over what had happened, more so because of the mental side of it. When we think about workaholism, there's the behavioral component, which is the actual excessive working, the long hours, the attachment to your devices, the compulsion. But the psychological component of it, that's that obsession, that inability to detach, that tendency to worry, all of that. It's just, I feel like that's so much stronger than the behavioral component. So what I needed to do is pretty much attack that first. The first thing, as we always needed to do, I needed to accept it. I needed to accept where I was at. I needed to stop blaming other people. I needed to stop making excuses for why I wasn't taking care of myself. I had to take accountability. That was hard enough. That is always the first step. I had to say, this is my doing, and it is my responsibility to fix it. Simon used to always say to me whenever I would, mouth off about, I wasn't able to go to this thing because I had to work, and I wasn't able to go to yoga because I had to work. And he'd be like, go to yoga. I'm not going to knock on your door and tell you to go to yoga. If you want to go, go. I'm not stopping you of doing it. And I heard him say that all the time, but I still blamed other people. I needed to just take responsibility for it completely. Then I had to find out why. You and I share our love of psychological and biological function and all of the things. And so I needed to know why I was doing this. And I've always believed knowledge is power. So I did two things immediately. I started taking a barrage of personality and strengths tests, which I talk about all the time. I took Enneagram and Clifton Strengths and Myers-Briggs and what my name meant, what my star sign meant. And I mean, I just read and read and read about myself as a
human. You were on a quest. You were on a quest of self-discovery right there.
I wanted to know where this all came from, or how it's manifesting itself. So that strength set was one side of it. And then, of course, I started therapy for the mental side of it. I needed to do something about the behavioral, but I needed to do something about the psychological component. So
now let me ask you a critical question about that quest, Monique. Being as firmly honest and vulnerable as you can be, do you think that quest was about trying to find an understanding outside of yourself? Like this is nature, not, kind of thing? Or was it really and truly a quest about understanding your choices of behavior and what was within your area of control? Or was it some mix of the two?
I really think it was about me, because I had to flip everything that I was already telling myself on its head. If I thought to myself, wow, I am all powerful, that if I make a mistake, the world's going to end and everyone will notice and everyone's going to think this thing of me. I was like, if I have that kind of an ego for when I'm going to make a mistake, then let me find out what I'm doing. Because if I'm all powerful, then this is me. This has got to be me. And if I knew no matter what happened in the external world, no matter who told me I was doing a good job, it never worked. Praise was good, but we were like, of course I did a good job. I worked my ass off on it. Excuse me. Of course I did a great thing. I really tried really hard, and I'm a workaholic. So it really was self-discovery. I needed to blame myself.
So take accountability, go learn about yourself. What was the next step?
Go learn about yourself. Again, therapy. I'm always going to talk about therapy. I love therapy. It helped me so much to identify where these thoughts and feelings were coming from within myself. But that behavioral side with the personality test really helped me understand how I behaved in the outside world. One of the things I found out was like in Clifton Strengths, I'm a #1 achiever. So I genuinely am. It's a strength set of mine to be a hard worker. And I love working hard. So I needed to divide that between I love working, I enjoy it, to workaholism. These are different things. I need to do it so that I feel accomplished, or I love to do it because this is who I am.
Yes.
So I started to switch those around. And then I read a lot about confidence building and how you build confidence, thinking that if I'm always down, if I'm always negative on myself, why don't we try to do the opposite? Let's try to be some positive. So I started reading about self-confidence, knowing that the more you do of the things that you're good at, the more your confidence builds. You don't really get confidence from doing the things you're not good at. And you certainly don't gain confidence from other people or for likes or thumbs up. You gain confidences from within, and usually only from within. So I needed to build up that strength. So I, again, took all that research that I did on myself, and I started to invest in doing things that I loved to do so that I could pair my energy with the love of the thing. And so I started to build my confidence that way.
So smart. So smart. Fabulous.
Boundaries, boundaries had to go in place. I had to start understanding where I was putting myself out, not where other people, everyone else always comes to me and they dump everything on my desk and blah, blah. No, it was me who was saying yes to all of that. It was me who was saying, sure, I have time. It was me who was taking on somebody else's project when somebody else couldn't do it. And instead of teaching them how to do it, I would just do it myself. So I had to take some boundaries. No, I'm not going to miss my niece's birthday party. No, I'm not going to, take on another executive when I already have 3 of them. Yes, I'm going on my vacation. I'm setting up my own boundaries. The truth bomb that I found out, and here's my truth bomb for all of you out there. People will still love you if you say no. I know.
That's a clip it moment right there. Yes, people will, and sometimes people will respect you more.
Absolutely. If the people are true in your life, they will respect you. They will still love you if you say no. And if they don't, when you say no, that tells you something about them now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
So It's all about the delivery too. You don't have to be a jerk when you're doing it. This is where your communication skills come into play. The way that you say no is also very important. The way that you put up your boundaries is very important. It's not about you being a jerk and holding up your hand. It's about just respecting your own time, because no one else is going to respect your own time like you do.
I love it.
So
talk to us a minute about how your relationship with shame progresses during this time as well, because again, that is something that gets locked into our bodies at a very subconscious level at a very young age. But luckily you were working with a therapist as well. But what can you share with listeners that might be helpful about trying to redevelop a relationship with your internal shame story?
Internal shame story, yes. So again, you said it yourself, it's an internal shame story. So we're the ones that start every day at 0. We're the ones that say, if we don't accomplish something, if we don't get to 10 by the end of the day, we've accomplished nothing. We're the ones starting that. And that was definitely in my head. I was the one projecting my feelings about what would happen onto other people, thinking they thought, like, who am I to tell other people what they're thinking about me? But the main thing I did, and this was the hardest thing that I did, and I told Simon that I was doing this. Every time I made a mistake, I had to tell him. I had to tell someone every time, and I cringed and I hated everything about it. And I was like, oh, and the mistakes that I would bring forth, I'm like, I forgot to send that email. Oh, and I was just like beside myself. And Simon would be like, so send it tomorrow. Like, it was never him putting that on me. It was me. So I did the uncomfortable thing and I admitted my mistakes over and over and over. I had to get used to it.
It's like aversion therapy, right? Like if you're afraid to fly on a plane, like you go through all these steps, right, to build up, same kind of thing. Like it's a type of aversion therapy that you did on yourself. It's like I'm just going to own it, and I'm not going to give myself this out to feel shame and hide. And that's powerful. I haven't heard anybody else sort of say it that way, but I will share. If you go back to the very first episode of this season, listeners, with Rachel Drunkenmiller, we had this wonderful moment in her episode where she talked about something that Monique just alluded to, and that is we are so caught up in this idea that people are thinking way more about us than they actually are. they're really not like as into us as we think that they are.
100%.
Especially in, I mean, yeah, people will be critical, but really, are they like that Yeah, not. They're really not that invested. That is just a story that you tell yourself. It is a lie of your inner critic to control you that is not serving you.
Ask any perfectionist out there. Ask anyone. Has anyone ever actually fired you because you missed the period at the end of the sentence? Like, really? What actually happened? And this was part of the process with admitting my mistakes. Basically, what that was doing was telling my monkey brain that I wasn't going to die. That's what your brain is always trying to do, is keep you alive, keep you out of shame, keep things moving. And so I had to convince myself that I wasn't going to get fired, that I wasn't going to lose my friends, that I wasn't going to not be loved if I did these things. And so I just had to do them. And then after a while, I was like, well, I'm still alive. And
let's be honest, for a high achiever, that I'm not going to be mediocre if I admit this.
Yeah. And even to this day, I still say it. If I don't, if I have 20 things on my to-do list and I do 19 of them, I'm still going to myself, oh, I didn't do that one thing. But now I say that, and I find the behavior to fix it. So if I didn't do that thing today, when am I going to do it? I plug it into the calendar. I write the draft. I do the thing. I make a pathway for me to get the thing done. And then I laugh. There I go again. Silly me. I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but when you do it every time, there's a lot of times now where I make a mistake and I'm like, oy vey, Monique. And I just say that to myself out loud. And you just move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Not allowing it to have this density.
Yeah.
Right. That we've given it in the past. There's a LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I don't see your name. It's just, you just come up as LinkedIn user that asked this question a while back. We are at our time, but I want to stay for a moment and give you a chance to talk to this. How do you make invisible expectations visible to a leadership team that only cares about the final result? That is a big challenge for burnout. As somebody with all of the experience that you have working very high level executives, I think you can relate to what this listener is asking about. What guidance would you share about that?
I would say, what are you defining as the final result? So if the final result is the project done, when you're not able to complete it for whatever reason, you're going to stretch yourself and make yourself into a pretzel. The final result could be you saying, this isn't going to work out, and here's why. The final result could be you saying, we're going to need to push the board meeting because of XYZ, or I'm going to need another staff member, or I didn't hear back from the catering company. I'm keeping you updated, but the result doesn't have to be the result that we think it is in our head, which is the complete and final project. A lot of times doing things like keeping people updated on where you are, even if they don't ask. Yes, I've got the project. I've already called Joe. I'm just waiting for him to call back. And the next day you say, I didn't hear back from Joe, but I'm going to send him another email today. And the next day you say, I heard back from him. I'm going to get everything done. These little milestones are going to help people understand that you're working on it. A lot of times they want that final result because they don't know what you're doing in the middle, especially for executive assistants. Nobody knows what we do. Even other executive assistants don't know what other executive assistants do. So that's why they're looking towards the final result, because they don't know the ingredients that it takes to make up the meal that you just made. So telling them, hey, I'm going to make this meal. I'm going to do this. Here's where I'm at. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy the ingredients. I made the ingredients. I'm soaking the bones, soaking the beans, keep them on your journey. And maybe that result won't be as challenging.
I agree with what you're saying. What I would add to that for you, I hope you're still listening with us, is that a lot of times leaders, they develop their own formula for what works. Yeah. And so if they've been in this pattern with other people in your role where they just put on more pressure and to do the impossible, and people keep figuring out how to come through, it feeds the monkey brain, right? It just says, okay, yeah, so just go put more pressure on, and you get the result you want. But you have the opportunity to change that conversation in terms of how you choose to engage. So I would highly encourage, I teach something called Courageous Conversations, which is about this, which is being willing to go and say, hey, I really want to be the partner that you can count on. And that means that there are times when I'm going to hit hard limits, and I'm going to make you aware of those. Yeah. And we're going to have to figure out, are we renegotiating the time? Are we adding more resources? There are always ways around roadblocks, but I do not have the complete authority to make all those decisions. And that's when I'm going to pull you in. Yep. And we're going to have to figure out what the best next step is together. And yes. if you set that relationship up and then you start acting in accordance with that, and if you're getting that pushback, you just take them back and say, hey, remember I was telling you that we're partners and there are certain roadblocks where I got to have your input. We're at one of those right now.
Yeah.
Just know that you may be having to break them from patterns of behavior. Yeah. And you can say, that's not my job. You can tell yourself all kinds of stories about that. But what I will tell you, if you want to step into your agency in that moment and not be a victim of it, that's the best advice I can give you.
100%. 100%. Be strong in your conviction, and you know what you know, and you don't need, other people don't know how you're getting to the answer that you're getting to in your work. Again, not a lot of people know what the ins and outs of everyone's job is. And so, after a while, I would just look at my executives when they wanted the result. I'd say, that's cute. That's cute that you think I could do that in 24 hours. I love that you think that I'm a magician that could do that. But guess what? I'm not a magician. And I also want to tell the women out there, stop referring to yourself as wizards and magicians, and I'm a unicorn because I can do everything. Those things are fake creatures. They are not humans. We are human. We have limitations. We need to sleep and eat. So the vernacular of I'm magic, I'm a unicorn, I can do everything. No, you're not. You're a human. And so you could tell your executives, I'm human and I don't control Joe in accounting, but I will certainly go follow up with him again.
All right, listeners, from Monique's lips to your ears, here is your permission slip to stop human doing and start being human. And she's giving you the roadmap. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but for every episode, I create a self-reflection guide that gives you some prompt questions based on this conversation to help you take these ideas and immediately start to put them in action in your life. So make sure that you come to the your favorite podcast platform. There'll be a link right at the top of the description to grab that. Go grab that. Come subscribe to that and put Monique's tips, because she gave us a great roadmap of how she responded in this moment, how she reframed her life. So you can do this as well. So if you were going to say it in one or two sentences, if the story that you were telling yourself before was that your value and worth was only measured in your doing and that you had to do it perfectly and its best, what is the story that you now tell yourself, Monique?
That every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to give it my best shot. That I'm going to be the best version of myself, that I'm going to give the best version, that I'm going to work the hardest that I can work, that I'm going to do everything that I can to be the best. And there's no measurement for that. My best today might not be my best tomorrow. And my best tomorrow might not be the best the next day. Don't measure, just every day be your best.
And just knowing that was your best of the day is enough.
Best of the day. If you're having a bad day, that's okay. There's tomorrow.
I love this conversation. I'm so sorry that we hit the end of our time. Monique, thank you for coming and inspiring us on this conversation of the story I'm telling myself. Friends, you might be creating your exact wellness issue, right? I hope you now have some new insights. Be sure you grab that self-reflection guide and then come back again next week for our next conversation on the story I'm telling myself. It has been a treasure having you with us, Monique. Thank you very much. And listeners, we'll see you back here next week. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you love this episode, leave us those 5 stars and be sure to share this with a friend. And if you didn't, don't worry about it. See you back here next week.